My hand was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone to my ear. Not from age. From the sentence the man on the other end had just said to me. Twice. Like he thought I hadn't heard him the first time. I stood in my garage, in the exact spot where the car used to sit, staring at a rectangle of clean concrete surrounded by 14 months of dust. The oil stain was still there. Her oil stain. I remembered getting down on my knees to scrub at it once, right after the funeral, and giving up halfway through because some things you're not supposed to erase. My phone buzzed again. A text this time, from my son. Don't make this weird, Dad. It's just a car. I set the phone down on the workbench very slowly, the way you set down something that might go off. Then I picked up my keys and went to find out exactly how much my son thought a marriage was worth. My name is Robert Hale. I'm 68 years old, and for 31 years I ran Hale & Sons Construction out of a two-bay garage that grew into a company with 42 employees and a reputation, in 3 counties, for finishing on time and never cutting a corner. I built that business with my hands and my wife's spreadsheets. Eleanor kept every dollar honest for 3 decades. I sold the company 2 years ago for $2.4 million, and I thought that would be the last big number that mattered in my life. I was wrong. The number that mattered was $185,000. That's what a fully documented, numbers-matching, concourse restored 1967 Corvette Stingray in Marina Blue is worth to a serious collector. Eleanor and I bought that car as a wreck in 1991 for $4,200 and spent the next 11 years rebuilding it together on weekends. She did the upholstery herself, hand-stitched, because she said if her name wasn't on the work, it wasn't really hers. We drove it exactly once a year, on our anniversary, top down, no matter the weather. Eleanor died 14 months ago. Pancreatic cancer, for months from diagnosis to the end. The Corvette sat in the garage under a cover after that. I couldn't drive it. I could barely look at it. But I never once considered it wasn't still hers. My son Connor is 34. I love him. That never stopped, not for 1 second of what I'm about to tell you. But love and trust turned out to be 2 very different accounts, and Connor had been quietly overdrawing the second one for years without my noticing. It was a Tuesday in March when I first heard the word Paris and didn't think anything of it. Connor's girlfriend, Brittany, 29, posted a photo to her page. 2 glasses of champagne, a hotel balcony, the Eiffel Tower lit up gold in the background, captioned, "Some men actually know how to treat a woman." Under it, 41 comments. I only knew because Connor's cousin sent me a screenshot, laughing, asking if congratulations were in order. I called Connor that night. He picked up on the 4th ring, and I could hear music behind him, glasses clinking, Brittany's laugh cutting through it, too loud, too bright. "Dad, hey, can this wait? We're at dinner. Just wanted to know if you're really in Paris." A pause. Then, muffled, like he'd put his hand over the phone, but not well enough. "It's my dad. He wants to know about the trip." And Brittany's voice, clear as a bell, delighted with herself. "Tell him the Corvette bought us a very nice week." Connor laughed. Actually laughed. He came back on the line smooth as anything. "Dad, I'll call you tomorrow, okay? Don't wait up." I stood in my kitchen holding a dead phone, and for the first time in 14 months, the quiet of that house wasn't grief. It was a question with a very short list of answers. I didn't call Connor back. I went to the garage instead, pulled off the dust cover, and confirmed what my gut already knew. The car was gone. No note. No conversation. Just an empty rectangle on the concrete. I drove to the county clerk's office the next morning and requested the title history. It took 2 days. When it came back, my hands went cold reading it. The Corvette had been sold 6 weeks earlier to Silverline Classic Motors for $61,000. Over $100,000 under its appraised value. A fire sale number for a fire sale timeline. And the seller of record wasn't me. It was Connor. Acting under a power of attorney I had never signed. I invited Connor to lunch. I didn't mention the title. I wanted to see what story he'd give me first, unprompted. "How was Paris?" I asked. Over coffee I didn't drink. "Amazing, Dad. Honestly, life-changing. Brittany and I, we're talking about getting engaged." He smiled like a man who'd never lied to anyone in his life. "You'll love the ring I picked out. Must have been expensive." We saved up. A beat, then, casually. "Actually, Funny story. Remember Mom's old Corvette? I had it appraised, and honestly, Dad, it needed like 40 grand in engine work you didn't know about. Corrosion in the block. I didn't want to bother you with it, given, everything. So I had a guy handle it. Got you a fair number. Put the rest towards some improvements around your place. You'll see a new water heater next month. Jargon, specifics, a plausible villain, corrosion in the block, delivered without blinking. I nodded slowly, the way a tired old man nods when he's decided a fight isn't worth having. That was thoughtful of you, I said. He believed me completely. I hired a lawyer that week, quietly, using a firm 2 towns over Connor had never heard of, and had the power of attorney examined. It wasn't a limited document for vehicle repairs. It was a broad financial power of attorney, dated the week after Eleanor's funeral, granting Connor authority over all of my accounts, my investments, and my estate. My signature on it was close. Close enough to fool a DMV clerk on a busy Tuesday. Not close enough to fool a forensic document examiner, who told me flatly it didn't match the pressure pattern or letter forms of my actual signature, not even close, under magnification. Someone had traced it. Following the paper trail led me to a storage facility 20 minutes from my house, rented in my name, but paid for from an account I didn't recognize. Inside, Eleanor's wedding jewelry, which I'd been told was in the safe for now. 2 of my late father's hunting rifles. A box of silver I'd assumed Connor was getting appraised for insurance. All of it staged there like a warehouse, waiting for the right buyer, the right moment, or the right funeral. I came by the house unannounced one evening to drop off mail that had been misdelivered. The front door was unlocked. I heard them before I saw them. In the kitchen, Brittany's voice sharp with laughter. He legit thought corrosion in the block was a real thing, she said. You could tell him the moon needed an oil change, and he'd believe you. He's slowing down, Connor said. Eyesight, memory. Mom used to handle everything, and now he can't even keep his bills straight. Doctor thinks it's the start of something. Makes this so much easier, honestly. When do we do the house? Once the trust paperwork clears. Few more months. I stood in the hallway, mail still in my hand, and I did not make a sound. I made a decision standing in that hallway. They thought I was slow, so I would become slower. On purpose. I started wearing my reading glasses pushed low on my nose even when I didn't need them, squinting at documents I understood perfectly well. I let my voice go soft and halting at dinners, trailing off mid-sentence like I'd lost the thread. I asked Connor the same question twice in one conversation. Did you say the trust paperwork or the truck paperwork? And watched him exchange a look with Brittany that he thought I couldn't see. I started carrying a small spiral notebook everywhere, writing things down in front of them with a shaking hand. Except what I was actually writing was dates, dollar amounts, and exact quotes. To them, it looked like a man losing his grip. In reality, I was building a case file disguised as confusion. The reasoning was simple. A confident man gets watched. A confused man gets underestimated. And underestimated men get shown things that confident men never do. Bank statements left open on counters, phone screens unlocked on the coffee table, plans spoken freely in front of Dad, because Dad wasn't really listening anymore. Or so they believed. I let them believe it completely. I told Connor I wanted to get my affairs in order before I forget how, and asked him to help me set up a meeting with his lawyer, a man named Gary Pruitt, who, it turned out, had also notarized the fraudulent power of attorney. I suggested we do the meeting at my house, so I don't get lost driving. What Connor didn't know, I had already had my real attorney, a sharp, quiet woman named Denise Okafor, prepare a completely separate document, a revocation of the fraudulent power of attorney and a full asset freeze notice, ready to be served the moment I had what I needed on record. I bought a small digital recorder, the size of a matchbook, and taped it under the lip of my kitchen table 2 days before the meeting. I also asked my old foreman from the construction days, a retired detective's brother named Miguel, to install a discreet camera in the bookshelf facing the table, for security, since the neighborhoods had break-ins, I told Connor, playing helpless again. He installed the second Wi-Fi camera himself, not knowing I had a mirrored feed running to my phone the entire time. The night before the meeting, I sat at that kitchen table with my phone in my lap, watching the empty room on the little screen, and felt my heart pounding the way it hadn't since the day the doctor first said the word cancer. Different kind of fear. Same kind of stillness required to survive it. At 9:47 the next morning, my phone buzzed once, silently, under the table, the motion sensor tripping as Connor and Brittany let themselves in with Gary Pruitt trailing behind, a leather folder of paperwork under his arm. The recorder was running. The feed was live. I put my reading glasses low on my nose, folded my hands, and waited for them to start talking. They didn't talk at the kitchen table, as it turned out. Brittany suggested, brightly, that we make it a celebration and move to the backyard, where, I hadn't been told, she'd already arranged a small engagement party. 20 people. Connor's aunt, cousins, a few of my old employees Connor had invited without asking me. A caterer, setting out champagne flutes on my patio table. My own kitchen recording device was now 15 feet away through a closed door. I felt the trap slipping sideways. So I adjusted. Gary Pruitt, 3 glasses of champagne in, decided the estate paperwork could be finalized right there on the patio table, in front of everyone, framed as a toast to family and new beginnings. Connor stood, raised his glass, and, emboldened by an audience, went further than he ever had to my face. To Dad, he said, grinning, who's finally letting go of the past and trusting the family to handle things properly. Laughter. Brittany squeezed his arm. Honestly, it's such a relief he's finally slowing down enough to let us help. I stood up slowly. Every eye on the patio turned to the confused old man in the reading glasses. I took my glasses off. Before we sign anything, I said, my voice quiet, even, I want to thank Connor for something specific. 6 weeks ago, he sold my late wife's Corvette, the car she and I rebuilt together, by hand, over 11 years, for $61,000, using a power of attorney I never signed, to fund a $22,000 trip to Paris. Silence has a texture. I have never felt it as solid as I did in that moment. The buyer was Silverline Classic Motors. Their compliance department called me 11 days ago because the title had irregularities that made them nervous about resale. A forged signature does that. That call is what started all this. I set my phone on the table, screen up, the recording from the kitchen still logged and time-stamped. I have the forged power of attorney. I have a forensic document examiner's report confirming it's not my signature. I have a storage unit full of my late wife's jewelry and my father's rifles that were moved there without my knowledge. And I have a recording, from this morning, of Connor and Mr. Pruitt discussing how to get me to sign over the house next. Gary Pruitt's champagne glass stopped halfway to his mouth. He's confused. Connor said, too fast, too loud. Dad, you're confused, this isn't. I know exactly what corrosion in the block means, Connor, I said. There wasn't any. The dealer confirmed the car was in Concours condition. You lied to me across a coffee table, and I let you, because I needed to know how far you'd go. I picked up the framed photo of Eleanor that Brittany had, with astonishing tone deafness, placed on the gift table earlier that morning. For the ceremony, she'd said, and I held it up so everyone could see it. This is the woman whose car you sold to buy a ring for a woman who called me a fool in my own kitchen. I set the photo down gently, and then, in the only moment of the whole evening where my hands weren't perfectly steady, I took the fraudulent power of attorney out of my jacket pocket. A copy. Denise had the original locked in her office, and tore it in half. Once, cleanly, down the middle. 2 patrol cars pulled into the driveway 40 seconds later. Denise Okafor had arranged for a detective to be present, at a discreet distance. The entire party, standard procedure once we had recorded evidence of intent to defraud regarding the house. Gary Pruitt was asked to step aside first. His notary license, it turned out, was about to become a much bigger problem than one afternoon. Connor didn't say another word. He just stood there, holding a champagne glass, watching 20 guests realize, in real time, exactly what kind of party this had actually been. Within 6 weeks, the dominoes fell in order. Gary Pruitt was referred to the State Bar and the Notary Licensing Board for the forged power of attorney. His license was suspended pending investigation, and 2 other former clients came forward with similar complaints once the case made the local paper. Silverline Classic Motors, once shown the forensic report, voluntarily froze the resale of the Corvette and cooperated fully with the fraud investigation. The compliance officer who'd first called me, a soft-spoken woman named Patricia, personally called to apologize for how close they'd come to reselling a stolen family heirloom and helped me recover the car within the month. Connor was charged with forgery and financial exploitation of an elder, a charge that stings worse than any word I could have used at that party. He avoided prison through a plea deal, restitution of the full $185,000 value of the car, 5 years of probation, and a permanent record. Brittany's engagement, unsurprisingly, did not survive the arrest. She left within the week, and later, I heard, told mutual friends the whole thing had been Connor's idea, which, for once, I actually believed. I did not, however, let the fallout touch people who didn't deserve it. 2 of my old employees who'd been invited to that party, men who'd worked for Hale and Sons for over a decade and had nothing to do with any of it. I called personally to apologize for putting them in the middle of a family matter, and I made sure their invitations to Connor's future, whatever future he has, never reflected badly on them. And Miguel, who'd wired that camera for me without asking a single question, I paid triple his rate and told him if he ever needed a reference, my number was the first one to call. It rained hard the night. 11 weeks later, that Connor showed up at my door. He looked thinner. His jacket was soaked through, no umbrella, a duffel bag over one shoulder like a man who'd been asked to leave somewhere and hadn't had time to pack properly. He stood on the porch in the wet dark, the same porch light Eleanor used to leave on for him when he was 17 and out too late. "Dad," he said, "I don't have anywhere else to go." I stood in the doorway for a long moment, warm light behind me, rain behind him. There was a version of me, 14 months ago, that might have opened that door without thinking twice. That man buried his wife and still believed family meant automatic forgiveness. "You knew exactly what that car meant to your mother," I said quietly. "And you sold it anyway, and you lied to my face, and you called me slow in my own kitchen while you planned to take my house next. I'm not angry anymore, Connor. I'm just done. Dad, please. There's a shelter on Route 9 that takes walk-ins." I called ahead. "They're expecting you." I closed the door. Gently. Not a slam. I'd had enough slamming in my life. Just a quiet, final click of the latch. My oldest friend Frank, Eleanor's college roommate's husband, a man who'd stood beside me at both weddings and one funeral, was in the kitchen with 2 mugs of coffee when I came back in. He didn't ask how it went. He just slid a mug across the counter. "She'd be proud of you tonight," he said. "Not for the takedown. For the door." I looked out the window at the rain, at the empty driveway where the Corvette now sat again under its cover, home for good, and for the first time in over a year, the quiet in that house felt like peace instead of grief. Here's what I learned. Sitting in that quiet kitchen, love doesn't obligate you to be robbed twice. Once of the person you lost, and once by the people who were supposed to protect what she left behind. Being calm isn't the same as being weak, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do for your family is stop being useful to the people in it who never loved you. They just loved what you could give them. If someone in your life has ever tried to make you feel confused, slow, or expendable to get closer to what you own, I want to know. Have you ever had to play weak to protect what actually mattered? If this story hit you, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this one, and tell me in the comments, would you have opened that door in the rain or closed it like I did?